Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Ray2Go show. Today is an interesting day, to say the least. And the topic today that I'll be sharing with our illustrious panel, B.L. Ockman from New York, Jessica Duell from Boulder, Colorado, and Randy from Georgia.
Scott's over on Blab, and we don't
know what's happening in Seattle, so maybe. Phil's in the audience, and I'm just going to tell him without just typing it in. He can't find the event on the event page, and that's because, Phil, we're not broadcasting on the Google Plus event page. That's why you won't see it there, and that's why you still see the trailer over there. So you're in the right place now. Okay, so I think that's also confusing for a lot of people because we've decided so not to give people too many choices that we're not going to be having the show on 4 different platforms. It's my website, which is basically an embedded crowdcast episode, and then it's basically on YouTube, and that's it. Those are the 2 choices that you have. Making a third choice makes it hard for us to monitor the conversation. Also gives people, I think, too many choices, and it's easier to sort of put them on my site, which actually brings me to a part of the questions that we're going to ask today about Google Plus. Is it being relevant? Because I've noticed in the last few weeks a number of long-time veteran Google Plusers not leaving the platform in so much as they're not going back, but they're pulling away from the platform and putting more focus on their own property. And we've said this in many shows that really you have to have a home, and that's your website, because we never know what's going to happen with rentals, right? And Google Plus, as much as it's huge, it's not ours. We have no control over what they do, as the last few months I think illustrate very clearly. So the first question I'm going to put out to the panel today, and if you guys want to jump in, go ahead, is basically that. The title of the show is Google Plus still in the game? Is it still relevant for marketers and business people? So who wants to go with the first answer?
Well, I think BL's probably chomping at the bit to jump in there, but let me just say a little bit about how I view it. Yes, I think it's still relevant. I think if there's been a lot of investments, people over the last couple of years with it. We've had a great run with what we've been doing on Hangouts on Air with your work, Ray, and it's relevant. Now, from a consultant standpoint, if I was picking up a new client that did not have any footprint in this space right now, I wouldn't push them there. I just wouldn't. I mean, it's proven to be problematic. It's proven to, get the rug pulled out from under you at any day. So I wouldn't do that. But I wouldn't, like I said, if I was there, and I might pull back some, as you mentioned that some more. I might pull back a little bit, but I wouldn't be investing very much in it going forward.
In the platform as a whole, Randy, or any particular part of the platform?
I think the platform as a whole, honestly. I mean, Google is what Google is. You got to play what Google is. But I just don't. I think there's other platforms out there now that are quick and easy to use, easy to adapt. I'm kind of like the Gary V attitude: jump in and strike it while it's hot, drive it while it's hot, and then let it go to the next one. That's what I see happening a lot today.
Okay.
Well, one thing that you did not mention at the beginning of the show when you were describing where the show is viewable is that we are in a Google Hangout. We are on Google Plus in a Google Hangout integrated with your YouTube channel. So from my point of view, what I've been promoting and selling and being involved with for the past 3 years, which has been a lot like banging my head against the wall, has been live streaming events. And I work doing private paid consulting for clients using Google Plus. I do use this platform. I will continue to use this platform because it's got HD sound. It's got HD video and much better sound than anything else. It's got features that nobody else has, and the integration with YouTube is beautiful. Will Google take that away tomorrow? We have no way to know. At this point, I will use this platform for what it's best for, and that, in my opinion, is and has always been events. But I never stopped blogging on my blog. I've been blogging on my blog since 2000. That's my property. Nobody can take that from me. I cross-post here, and I cross-post on Facebook, but I own What's Next blog, and I always will.
What have we been saying since the Ray Bunch has started, Ray, on every time we talk and we talk about that, we've always said that or I know that I have, that your investment needs to be on your own real estate. Always. And it's strange to me that people have not bought into that. As what
You
he
see it
said.
happening again. People are going to Blab, going, "Oh, I gave up on Hangouts. I'm on Blab all the time, 24 hours a day." And Blab is the panacea of my life, and it's not. It's another rented platform that has some phenomenal potential and some great features, but it's not yours.
Okay, so Jess, I want to hear from Jess before I move on.
I'm in the middle of Randy on one side and BL on the other.
You literally are.
She's leaning a little closer to BL on my view. So,
what I'm thinking is when I work with a client, I really am taking into account what are their needs. And Google Plus, Google products, Google everything is still at the top of that. And it takes a lot to rule it out because it is one place to go. And yes, there's a little bit of learning for all the different aspects, but who uses all the features of everything? So understanding their features, if they have one place to go instead of several, I would take that in a heartbeat. The other side of that is for people who don't have a platform or the knowledge or the desire to learn how to create content in a multimedia rich format, I think it's also a very good platform. But if they're like, man, all these clicks really just don't fit my style, or whoa, I just have to get back, because I watch everybody on this panel and I get intimidated sometimes because my setup is not as complicated as y'all's in a lot of different ways. And so if people are really shy around that, I might send them someplace else. Ultimately though, what's the purpose for creating the content? And that is actually then what I would use to decide which platform makes sense. And I think Google Plus, like I said, is high on my list of things to start with.
okay, but
just before you jump in, Randy, because Jessica just mentioned something that I'm going to go on to the second part, but I want to address something, and that is there's two aspects of Google Plus here, and that is the product aspect and there's the social aspect. We didn't touch upon the social aspect. We're talking about the products like Google Hangouts and Photos and Stream and all those things. But part of the reason I think people were kind of seduced into jumping into Google Plus remember that wave of, oh, I'm going to do my blogging on Google Plus. At the beginning, people are leaving their actual blogs to blog on Google Plus, thinking they're going to get more SEO.
Well, if you could do long form
blogging and multimedia because the images were great. But the SEO thing is especially, and I think whether it's us as Google Plus enthusiasts at that time or Google itself, encouraged that. And so now I think people are starting to understand that. No, it's been so unstable for so long that this is probably not a good idea. And I think a good lesson has been learned over the last few months with what's been happening with Google. So go ahead, Randy.
Well, what I was going to say is, and what you just hit on, the product. BL mentioned that she likes to use the Hangouts on air to consult with clients. That's what Jess was talking about, is the product. And I agree, we're using the product, but the idea is you use the product and repurpose it somewhere else. The biggest thing with Google has always been you don't have the audience. Remember a year ago, we kept talking about, when are people going to grab hold of Google Plus? It's always been in a decline. And like Phil just said, he's seeing his connections drop off on Google Plus. I mean, people are leaving it. I mean, it's not that they're gaining; it's losing ground. So yeah, as long as they keep these products like this that are beneficial to you, that you can capture something and repurpose it on an own site or in another platform somewhere else, then yeah, it's beneficial to you.
Yeah. The other thing is that for whatever reason, Google Plus has been the whipping post of mainstream media. And as recently as yesterday, there was by Social Media Monthly, which is about social media, there was a webinar by a guy who has 34 followers on Twitter and who has never posted on Google Plus, talking about whether or not Google Plus is relevant. Excuse me, you can't talk about stuff that you don't use. And the articles about this invariably came from people who were not using the platform. Those of us who were using the platform and continue to use the platform know that socially and network-wise, this is a remarkable place to be. I mean, we all met here, and I have contacts here that are deeper, better, faster than on any other platform, with the exception of the early days of blogging. But I see people doing the same thing now that happened at the beginning in Google Plus. I see them going to blabbing their heads off and abandoning their other media.
So you're
So not
talking
only-
tenacity, sticking with something over time. And in a world where our technology changes before we can blink sometimes, and new options are coming available to us multiple times, sometimes each day, it's hard to choose. And I think if the people who are sticking with it will find a benefit there. And that's what I really like that you're saying. It doesn't matter what all the choices are. Stick with something, know that it will benefit over time. And even though the technology is changing fast, the results are not going to ever be as fast as the technology is changing.
But as
Phil
BL,
asked, oh, go ahead.
as BL was saying, it works for her in her environment, and she's cultivated a circle of very deep relationships there that work for BL, right? The audience is still not there. So from a marketing standpoint, if I'm telling somebody, where are you going to get the sticky at? It is not on that Google Plus platform.
What audience are
Is
you
your paying-
talking about?
It depends on what kind of client I'm talking to, BL.
Well, okay, let's go back to that, because Phil asked in that point he made about Circle Scope and the fact he's seeing more inactive users, and I've noticed that as well, Phil. Is that and he says, for brand pages, consumers are not there, and that was always the major critique I heard from people about using Google Plus, that nobody is there. And yes, we've built a strong community here, because all of us have invested a lot of time on this platform, and we love it for that. And it was great for building networks. But I'll tell you something, I would say probably less than 5% of my leads or my jobs came from Google Plus, and that was because they went to my website and said, "Oh, this guy knows about Google Plus." But on the whole, my peers are here, and I love it here, and that's why I'm going to stay here definitely socially. And I think there's some products that I'm going to go to the next question that are very, very useful for clients. But for someone new coming on this platform, they're going to have a very hard time getting traction on it.
I just want to comment on what Randy said. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, NASA has a hangout, and it will have 20,000 people watching, because it's NASA and it's their content. It's all about what content you have, whether that content is appealing to the people who have the technological savvy to tune in here. It's all about what you have to say, and you know what? That's what it's about everywhere.
So
Your audience will be here depending on your content.
I've got a friend down the road that's a gun manufacturer. He manufactures like assault type rifles. He's one of the largest upstart companies in that realm, right? He has become pretty massive in that tactical police environment. Would you tell him to put something on Blab? I mean, on Google Hangouts. I mean, what would that benefit him?
Hold on, I have some questions. The first question would be what kind of content are you creating? Are you going to copy the people that are on YouTube already, demonstrating different guns and driving them to a purchase page? Then possibly. If his purpose is to just showcase what he has and have conversations and build a network, I would say build a network of other businesses that would be complement, because something that BL said and that you have also mentioned, Randy, is that you've got this idea of these networks, and it comes down to networks. And we think about using social platforms, whether it be Google Plus or another one, to drive business leads to us. Well, you know what? Almost all of my business is referral. Even if somebody found me on social media first, whether they've talked to me and vetted me, they don't just call me out of the blue and say, sign me up for whatever. They talk to me and vet me, and we build a relationship. All of my network on social media refers business to me on occasion. I get to refer business to them. People see things, and we're not getting leads to close. So for your gun manufacturer contact, I would say, find the people he needs to know that would help him grow bigger, and figure out how to build those lasting relationships and do the work on the relationship and other benefits.
You're speaking, Jessica, you're speaking specifically of Google Plus, because that sounds pretty broad. That could be like.
It could be, well,
I would say you mentioned right off the bat, you mentioned YouTube, which has a very robust, this is our latest model. This is a demonstration. This is how to do this. This is how to clean. I mean, it has an extensive library on YouTube.
Yep.
What benefit would him doing Hangouts on air or repurposing that in this, and when he's got 1 million subscribers to his YouTube?
Like on an event page, right?
Yeah. What benefit would that do?
Yeah.
It would be an extreme amount of effort and money to attract a very small audience.
I'm going to go to the second question because I want to talk about, in terms of making Google Plus relevant or something that you would suggest to a client. What features would you recommend? Because we've talked about, and BL, I totally understand with Hangouts, but now Hangouts has been kind of disconnected from Google Plus, the social part, and as has photos, and Google, and we're using the Hangout platform, but I'm using a wrapper, the Crowdcast wrapper that fits over it. So yes, I'm using a Google Plus product, the Hangouts on Air, but it's on my web page, and NASA, I imagine, is having it on their site as well. So it's a product for sure. So the products that I would recommend, what would you recommend? The choice to say Google My Business, the social stream, communities, collections, photos, and of course, or Hangouts. I mean, when we're looking at this platform, we're looking at products, and the only thing that's Google Plus-y now is the social stream, and how social is that? So what would you recommend clients go for if they're going to go use a Google Plus?
From my point of view, live streaming events using Google Plus, and Google just made it easier to invite people into Hangouts either by email or I forget what the second way was, and that when you create events here, you have many different ways to promote them. So I still am absolutely a big fan of Google Plus and using it for events and for consulting, but it's not an either or thing. I completely agree with Bill Graham. It's what works for each specific thing. And for what I do, which is producing live streamed events, this is a great platform.
I'm going to agree for sure. The feeling I'm getting is that in terms of a social stream, it kind of bit it. I mean, it's not working. Yes, it works in a collaboration, but I'll tell you my personal experience is that I find my social stream so different than what it used to be. It's for now it's like a Twitter thing. So unless you're following specific collections, or you're actually following communities, which I tend probably to forget to go back to 9 times out of 10. The social stream if it's a particular circle that I have, someone I don't want to miss. For the new person coming in, I don't know if that's worth it, because again, the people who I like to hang out with are here. The people I would like to do business with aren't so much.
Well, and you need to separate that, right? Are you being Ray Hilt's social? Or are you being Ray Hilt's business? And there's a difference.
My main source of referrals and traffic is and has been Twitter since 2007. I have a large community there. It's my first source of everything.
That's actually how I met you, BL, was Twitter.
Yep, we probably had an argument.
That's why I love you guys.
I think we came to the conclusion to just agree to disagree. Maybe that was it. It wasn't necessarily an argument.
Of the products that you have, I mean, we know how you feel about Hangouts. Would you advise or recommend a client use any other of the Google Plus products?
I would understand what the problem is they're trying to solve, or what service they're trying to get out.
Exactly.
Or they are going to.
Okay, let's say usually a person that goes on social media tries to find and nurture a relationship, build a community around their brand. Is this the place to do it?
It depends. I mean, I'm completely with Jess here. For attorneys, there's a really rich and active community here on Google Plus, and I do a lot of work with attorneys for health people, for a number of verticals. There are very active communities and a whole lot going on, exchange of information, and I'm involved in those. Would I bring every client into here? Absolutely not, but I never would have.
I think that what's been said about the video aspect of Google is phenomenal. I mean, this is great. Like BL said, they can pull it out tomorrow, and we, there it goes. But you can't really replicate what you're able to do with this product right here anywhere else right now with what you're able to get. with it, and how you can, like we talked about, repurpose it somewhere. Scott does his little treatment on that. He edits it, he makes some nice little succinct commercial bits or short bits and things like that. That's phenomenal. But okay, if there is a great community of physicians, anesthesiologists or something that hang out together, then yeah, that's a thing. But nobody ever really, and you haven't mentioned it today, wants to talk about that dreaded F word. Facebook has those same communities in it. And that's where I say it depends on what kind of audience is this person trying to gravitate towards. If you're trying to hit the masses, then you got to go to someplace like Facebook. That's where they're at.
But if you want to hit the masses on Facebook, you better have an advertising budget to boost your posts, or nobody's going to see it.
Nothing in life is free. People know that. And you're seeing. Hell, I'm seeing more and more sponsored posts on my Facebook. So somebody's spending some money.
It sounds like we're talking around defining the problem, but what are the things, if I am a business and I am looking to build a community, there might be a set of questions that we ask around that. If I am looking to build my professional network, there might be some questions around that. If I am going to build my social network, there might be some questions around that. If I need to find a way to purpose content or repurpose content or create content and have a content platform, anything around that could have a series of questions that is defined to decide which product for a particular business in a particular area in a particular niche would be able to answer those questions. Because I think Google has something for everybody. I think Google Plus has something for everybody, but where it fits on that hierarchy of priority will depend on the answers to questions that are going to be very specific to each company or business.
One thing that I tell absolutely every client that I speak to is to fill out your Google Plus profile, because that is also your Google profile, in the fullest possible way, because that is going to show up in so many places online, and people don't do that. And the other thing that everybody misses, the biggest brands miss this, is to use your descriptions on YouTube, where you can put 900 words in the description, including links and timestamps and everything else, to use those, because those will reflect in search. Companies just don't get how to use Google products. Again, and we've talked about this before, I blame it on Google. They suck at explaining their own products.
Yeah, the marketing was a big issue. I just wanted to go before we go to the end of the show, which is coming up really quickly. I want to say, in terms of using Google Plus as a business, I think Google My Business is essential for brands. You have to be on the map, and you have to get reviews, and you have to be found. And it's still, I think, especially if you have a brick and mortar business, if you have a local business, Google My Business is very, very important. Even though they don't link to your Google Plus page for some reason in the search. I don't know why that is. Secondly, I think that it's important that, as you said, BL, that profile there, because that Google profile still does follow you around the web. Even though authorship is done, I just read recently where they're really recommending that you don't get rid of it if you have it set up. So that gives me an inkling that they're going to do something with that in the future. But I want to answer Phil's question here, because I think there was a lot of confusion today on why I'm not broadcasting this on the Google Plus event page. And I'll tell you my experience. It's what I said earlier. I like to hang out with the people here, and the people here are people who I like to hang out with. And the problem is, they're not people I do business with. And as much as I love doing this, I only have so many hours. And if I'm going to do this, I want people who are interested maybe in working with me to see it. And the truth is, those people aren't on Google Plus, and they're not going to go to the event page. And the event page has been kind of, I don't think, paid attention to enough by Google. You're there. Your YouTube video is there, but aside from that, yes, you can share it on Twitter and stuff, but I don't think it was given the respect that it should have. There's a lot of issues with the event page, but as I replied in the Blab when people were asking why the show wasn't there. By the way, the show is playing. I just noticed I went over to Blab, and he's got the recording of the show playing, so you can watch the show on Blab at the same time now. The reason we did that is because, again, people left this because they understand that you have to have your own real estate, that you have to invest your time on your own real estate. So why would I do that? So I was taking a risk. that the people that have followed the Ray Bunch for 2 years would follow me onto a new platform. Now that's going to take time. I don't expect everybody to do that, and I expect some confusion, but it's an investment I make. And yes, I'm going to be on Google Plus, definitely socially, but business-wise, there are very specific instances where I'll advise a client to go on Google Plus, and we mentioned some of those already, so I won't repeat them. But all I want to say is that the reason I'm not on the Google event page is that I want people to go to my website to see it, and then we can chat about it on Blab as well. So that's why we're here. So sorry for that, but I just want to make that very, very clear to people. And the Blab thing today was an experiment, but I'm not totally unhappy with it. I think there's possibilities there.
I do too. I'm
I do
actually
too.
watching this and I'm like, this is really cool to see Scott going back and forth like a commentary person or providing some commentary on top of what's going on. It's a great way to add context to what's going on in the, you've got the front center and then you've got this overview of what's happening. I like that.
Yeah, he's kind of our man on the street, kind of our as I mentioned before, our Blab barker, like bringing people into the conversation and stuff, and having conversation with people who aren't here. And isn't that, what we want to do? We shouldn't want, this is not just a little fenced area that went, oh, you have to come to here, because there's no paywall here. So if we can get people who like to go on Blab or prefer to be on Blab, then fine. We've got both audiences, and we're going to jump in right afterwards. So it's all kind of connected, as Bill said. It's not one or the other. Everything is synchronous. What's that word I'm looking for? Synchronicity. Anyway, it's synchronized. Everything works with each other.
There's a whole lot of people over on the Blab, and they're asking questions and making comments, and the majority of them might be a little confused, but guess what? Next time they won't be.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll take a little, we'll have a little briefing after the show. And
we just need to brand that pre-show, like the early show with Scott, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So we've come to the end of the show. I did a whole section I didn't hit, but I think this was very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it as well. It's a conversation that's going on. I know it's a touchy one because believe me, no one knows it better than I. I've invested everything in Google Plus, and I think I've learned a lesson. And what's that lesson? Don't put all your marketing eggs in one basket. So we've learned that at least. So we can move ahead, and I can choose to be on Google Plus, which I am. I like it, but I'm also more on Facebook, as Randy and Bill can attest. I'm spending a little more time there because that's a more social thing. So thanks for coming along, and we'll see you next week at noonish again on Blab and here on rayhills.com/Ray2Go. Bye-bye.